Just walking out on the stage. You can hear bits of applause from the audience. He's fumbling around with the microphone right now. He's giving his cues to the boys. He's winding up his legs. And here he goes with Heartbreak Motel. Well, we'll start at the end of Lonely Street at Heartbreak Hotel.
I remember seeing those hips and thinking, ah.
Heartbreak Hotel certainly was the record that broke Elvis Presley nationally.
An explosive new force.
Elvis scared the grown-ups.
Stop! He's a king!
The church was afraid of losing their control over their young people because their young people were going to Elvis Presley concerts and losing control.
I'm glad that the good Lord gave me the chance to walk in the same lifetime on the same highway as Elvis Presley.
Essa foi Mae Axton, coautora de Heartbreak Hotel, uma música destinada a definir a imagem de Elvis Presley e que se tornou o primeiro compacto de rock and roll. Era uma música sobre ansiedade adolescente e não sobre o amor juvenil, como muitas músicas daquela época. Tinha um estilo Estou Tão Só Que Posso Morrer, que naquela época só Elvis e sua postura rebelde podia passar com autenticidade. Ela estabeleceu rock and roll tanto como atitude quanto como estilo musical. Impetuosa, rebelde, repleta de carga sexual, ela ganhou vida como a trilha sonora para a juventude alienada, mesmo durante os anos prósperos da década de 50.
This is the Ike and Mamie 50s, the Eisenhower years in the United States, which was very conservative, post-Korean War, post-McCarthy witch hunt, post-Red Scare. All of this stuff is in the air. We're in the nuclear age. For the first time, human beings have the potential to destroy the planet.
This is a culture that needs control. It's a culture that has just been through a period of profound chaos, the Second World War. And there is this other force of chaos on the horizon called Marxism, communism.
There is this cloud hanging over America's youth, and America's youth is doing something that is cutting completely against all of that. And what they're doing is creating rock and roll.
Isso veio de Memphis e desde então nada mais seria como antes.
Once you turn south there at Memphis and start down 51 to the bridge, the air gets heavier and gets damper, and it does feel different. Right in there in the Delta region there were Jerry Lee and Elvis and Muddy and Sonny Boy and everybody came from. Right there is where music, hybrids of music, turned itself into rock and roll with a good backbeat.
Everything was compartmentalized in those days, you know, and rhythm and blues, as it was called, was played on the black station and the white music was played on the white station. And then all of a sudden, we're hearing a white guy on a radio program that is known for its black music, a guy named Elvis.
There was a disc jockey from WHBQ in Memphis, a fellow by the name of Bob Neal. Came on at 12 o'clock. His show was called High Noon Roundup. And he said he was a new boy from Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis Presley. Something went off inside of me saying, man, you need to get to Memphis.
Memphis was really like a stew. It was where a lot of musical styles merged, and there was a freedom in Memphis music. Nowhere else on earth would you find what happened in Memphis between what happened with Elvis's world, Jerry Lee, Carl Perkins, Cash, Roy Orbison, Sam Phillips. That hasn't happened again, and I don't think it ever will. Those boys just basically came in off the farm, sat down in Memphis, made some records, and changed the world.
Quando os rapazes saíam das fazendas com a música na alma e repletos de sonho de fama e fortuna, muitos iam para o estúdio Sun Recording, onde o proprietário Sam Phillips encontrava um mercado junto aos adolescentes, um público que surgiu de repente depois da Segunda Guerra.
When I got in this business, the record business, you went from kiddie records that stopped at about 5 or 6 years old to the adult record, which was 21, 25, 30, 40, 50 years old. There was nothing for the people between when they came into puberty, forget your damn music if you didn't want to go along with the idea of adult music, or you certainly didn't want to go back and listen to Little Red Riding Hood narrated to you.
It's just incredible how Memphis typifies everything that's great about American popular culture, but everything that's awful, all at the same time. They've even got a Heartbreak Hotel over the road from Graceland. There you can stay if you're like a real Elvis fan. You get the suite, generally the honeymoon suite, in Heartbreak Hotel.
Antes de toda a comercialização e da exploração de sua memória, que infelizmente marcou a carreira de Elvis, havia o Elvis dos anos 50 e Heartbreak Hotel, a música que deu início a tudo.
Great song, written by Hoyt Axton's mother, May Axton, a school teacher. How ironic is that? I mean, rock and roll's entirely against school, against everything, and a school teacher writes Heartbreak Hotel.
She wrote this song for Elvis. She personally took the song to Elvis. And it really showed, the popularity of that song showed how women and their music and their work had been so undervalued. So after that, they started looking for women songwriters, and you know, they're pretty well ensconced in the industry now as we know it.
Quando conheceu Elvis, May Axton trabalhava como relações públicas do coronel Tom Parker, o empresário de Elvis na época. Elvis já havia feito sucesso na região com gravações feitas para o selo Sun, mas ainda estava à procura de uma grande música de sucesso. May disse a ele que ela seria a autora dessa música. Menos de um mês depois, Heartbreak Hotel nasceu, quando o coautor Tom Durden apareceu com um artigo de jornal. Era sobre um suicida que deixou escrito em um bilhete: "Eu ando por uma estrada solitária." Inspirados por essas palavras, eles compuseram a música em menos de meia hora.
It's a fabulous song. I mean, you listen, you can get into the doom of the lyric, and it's really dark. You know, it's a really cool song, and that's, I think, why it endures.
It's almost a blues song in the deep B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters sense.
A RCA Victor comprou o contrato de Elvis da Sun Records no final de 1955. Então, Heartbreak Hotel tornou-se uma das 5 músicas que Elvis gravou para o novo selo, com vários músicos brilhantes, incluindo Chet Atkins, Floyd Cramer, o baixista Billy Black, o guitarrista Scott Moore e o baterista DJ Fontana.
Once Elvis did the song, it was done. You could stick a fork in it. Nobody could top what he did on.
Not only did it go to #1 country, #1 pop, rhythm and blues, I mean, everywhere. It just absolutely exploded.
Elvis dominou de tal modo as paradas no começo de sua carreira que não um, mas vários empresários ficaram felizes quando Elvis se alistou para o exército. Entre eles estava Bob Marcucci, que cuidava das carreiras de Frank Avalon e Fabian.
Well, when he went in the Army, he helped me make my 2 boys successful because he wasn't here. We didn't have to compete with him on records. And when I met Elvis, I told him that. I thanked him. He's the most polite man you could ever meet in your life. And I thanked him for helping me make Frank and Fabe a success. And he said, "I never did that, young man." I said, "Yes, you did. When you went in the Army, you helped me very much."
O impacto de Elvis nas futuras gerações de músicos não pode ser esquecido. Kate Richards, dos Rolling Stones, comentou que ao ouvir Heartbreak Hotel no rádio pela primeira vez e ao ter contato com o estilo do guitarrista Scott Moore, deu-se conta do que faria pelo resto da vida.
Elvis just played rhythm part of the time, so it wouldn't have been much without Scotty playing the rhythm and the fills.
Elvis Presley came along and just, of course, turned the world upside down. And he was a guy that made it possible for us hillbillies to play rock music, because it was before then it was always keyboard and saxophone and that sort of thing. And of course, Scotty Moore brought the guitar right into the forefront.
With the 3 of us, I tried to play some kind of rhythm and more or less just stab some notes here and there.
You know, that was where I first heard it. Elvis was the biggest influence on my guitar playing. In the beginning, anyway.
I called Elvis after the session, and I said, "Hey, man, did you do the song?" He said, "Yeah." I said, I said, "Did it come off good?" He said, "Yeah, it was great." And I heard these little girls giggling in the background. He said, "Hey, I gotta go." I said, "Yeah, I know."
Veja a seguir, as roupas e o jeito de dançar de Elvis causam um impacto visual. Seu estilo é censurado pelos conservadores, mas é copiado pelos jovens do mundo inteiro. Nós voltamos já já.
Estamos apresentando Impacto.
Voltamos a apresentar Impacto.
Não demorou para que Heartbreak Hotel deixasse a sua marca. Lançada no final de janeiro de 1956, em abril ela já era cantada por Elvis no programa de Milton Berle para um público que abrangia 1/4 da população americana. Seus trejeitos com um quadril causaram uma comoção imediata. Em um momento que sem dúvida ele preferia esquecer, Ed Sullivan disse que Elvis nunca apareceria no programa dele. No final de 1956, Sullivan mudou de ideia. Elvis apareceu dançando e cantando inúmeras vezes naquele programa popular, mas apenas da cintura para cima.
Put him on TV, but you couldn't show what he was doing below the waist. Pretty wild stuff. That's a comment on America in the 50s.
The reaction, of course, was often horror, just because they figured it was an unacceptable image, a man behaving in this way in public, in a format like TV variety programs, where he might be followed by, I don't know, performing monkeys or something like that.
The very way in which they danced brought attention to the fact that these are human beings with genitalia, for Pete's sakes. And the church doesn't want to know about that at this time in history.
You look at somebody like Eminem today, and we don't even give that a second thought. But the way Elvis Presley performed on stage at that time in a piece like Heartbreak Hotel, that was controversial in ways that we really can't understand now.
The role of a figure like Elvis is actually extraordinary because he was to take stuff that was going on in honky-tonks and in the bottom of the cultural ladder, as we usually understand it in hierarchical terms. He actually took all that stuff, which was full of life, full of vitality, full of sexuality, and very direct in ways that other popular music rarely had been, was to bring that all up to the surface.
Rock and roll's always been sexually driven, and I think the parents understood very well when they thought Elvis was subversive, that this was something they didn't want their kids doing. But, you know, and he was, when you think about the times and what the 50s were like and what Elvis was like. In fact, maybe, I'm trying to think of maybe some of the really far-out punk people have been more subversive and real self-destructive types. But probably in terms of sex, Elvis really did break a mold.
Elvis, heard the stories of, the people that were trying to shoot him for wiggling his hips. Well, the bottom line is that it's an extremely sexual phenomenon.
There was something about the way he moved that just grabbed you and never let you go. And that's when, I remember the first time I ever saw Elvis. Yes, I am old. Back in the 50s, we had a TV set. I think it was one of the first things I ever saw on TV, that first image. I must have been about 5 years old. And I remember seeing Elvis perform on the Ed Sullivan Show. I never saw a man move like that before. I never saw anybody move like that before. And that just stuck with me. And that's Elvis to me.
The kids were going wild. They jumped, I guess, from the second balcony for Elvis, and I've seen that happen.
This was a time when rock and roll was still edging into the minds of the adults, and a lot of adults were still putting down Elvis Presley. Oh, vulgar. You don't sing like that. I don't want those records in my house.
The way he half-puffed his lips, the way he snapped his fingers, the way he stuck his foot out and drug his arm around real fast while still playing the guitar and singing. And it just went over like gangbusters.
Every day you should have seen the boxes and boxes of mail that came in from all over the place for Elvis Presley. The married ladies wanted to have an affair with him. The gay guys wanted to go with him. It was an amazing thing to see the impact that Elvis Presley was having on the world.
When we come to the churches and the Southern churches, it's that this is a hysteria that is mimicking the hysteria of the church. We have these kinds of rolling in the aisles experiences in the church all the time. In fact, that was the one place where it was safe to have that kind of passionate public display because it was all for Jesus. Now, what happens when that kind of hysteria, that kind of passion now moves out of the church and into the concert hall and into the gymnasium at the school dances?
I know the evil feeling that you feel when you sing it. I know the lost position that you get into in the beat. Well, if you talk to the average teenager of today and you ask them what it is about rock and roll music that they like, and the first thing they'll say is the beat, the beat, the beat.
Esse foi o pastor Jim Snow, que ironicamente era filho de Hank Snow, uma lenda do country, e também mentor e empresário de Elvis. Seu sermão entusiasmado era típico da reação adversa da igreja assim que o rock surgiu.
In the 80s and 90s in Christian circles, especially the contemporary Christian music world, one of the phrases that you would hear a lot was, so why does the devil have all the best music? That wasn't the question asked in the 50s. The question asked in the 50s was, why is the devil stealing our best music?
I remember in the early 56, 7, they'd have record-breaking days. You know, you could hear a joker breaking that 78 over the turntable, and it kind of would break your heart.
I testified about rock and roll before the United States Senate subcommittee and to J. Edgar Hoover. And as I said then, I still believe that the rock and roll just gave them a chance to release their emotions, and what went on was going to go on anywhere, somewhere. It's just that more of it went on because there were bigger crowds.
Elvis, sem dúvida, causou um impacto na cultura durante sua carreira e depois da sua morte. Ele foi o catalisador de certas mudanças nas leis do entretenimento, incluindo o direito à publicidade, que basicamente é o direito de ter exclusividade sobre a sua própria imagem e de lucrar com isso.
When he died, he had amassed a significant value in his name, his likeness and stuff, and a lot of people tried to copy it. In fact, his value of his rights of publicity have generated more revenue, gross revenue each year since his death than he did his entire performing career. Very few people have that type of impact, even while they're living, but it's even fewer people that have that impact after their demise.
Everything they said about rock and roll was true. It did liberate sexuality. It did cause the races to mix together. It did create all the bad things the preachers preached again. They were right. It did all of that. And that's why it's such an extraordinary revolution.
Heartbreak Hotel não apenas apresentou Elvis e o rock para o mundo, mas também chamou para a ação várias gerações de cantores e músicos.
Elvis Presley hit the black and white screen on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I was gone. I was hopeless from there on out, you know.
When Elvis came out, he started singing some of the stuff that I had heard on those 78s, you know. I thought, yeah, this is cool.
Elvis came out, and my mouth just dropped open, and I thought, wow. I mean, this guy has got what it takes. I know he had a big inspiration on Buddy.
Of course, when I heard Elvis, when he come out with his first record, and I heard this on the radio, I said, man, this cat's opening up a door, you know.
Little Richard said it best when he said that Elvis Presley was a door. He was a door that white people walked through to get to rock and roll. And in the early days, rock and roll was black music, fundamentally, and where it came from. It had country music in it. It had gospel music, both white and black in it.
Radio stations were making formats at the time. They were now choosing what market they were going to address, and nobody wanted to address inbred, moronic, white trash, hillbilly, trailer park trash, which is what the country audience was perceived of as being, and everybody wanted to address this wonderful new group of consumers who were spending money like crazy, teenagers.
Country radio stations started dumping country music and becoming rock stations. That's why the Country Music Association was formed.
A lot of people thought Elvis killed country music, but he slowed it down quite a bit, you know, with the rock and roll coming in and everything.
What Elvis and rock and roll did was basically kick the stuffings out of the country music industry. You could have shot a cannon off in the Ryman Auditorium in 1958 at a Grand Ole Opry show and not hit a soul. I mean, I'm serious. It was bad.
He wasn't country, he wasn't pop, he wasn't rhythm and blues. He was just Elvis.
Esse aspecto da carreira de Elvis também se refletiu em sua imagem, no seu gosto pelas roupas. Ele nem sempre era um candidato a das revistas de moda, mas a enormidade da sua fama nunca deixou de provocar mudanças no mundo da moda.
If you look at the way people were dressing pre and post songs like Heartbreak Hotel, it was more casual.
A lot of more conservative men were very slow to catch on to casual wear. You know, it was regarded as an affront to previous generations, to men who had fought in the war, to the sense of kind of uniform, to kind of traditional values, conservatism.
If Dad wore his hair in a crew cut, Junior had a crew cut too. But it was along about that time that they wanted their own identity. You know, they wanted to wear their collar turned up like James Dean and Elvis. They were buying their own clothes and letting their hair grow and putting it in ducktails.
When Elvis was putting out Heartbreak Hotel, he was not a figure who appealed to grown-ups. He was not urbane. He was not sophisticated. It was an absolute travesty when they tried to dress him up in tuxedos and put him on TV, which they did.
It's when he kind of almost went to the sort of fancy dress box and picked outfits which are kind of visually very striking, that he became iconic in terms of style as well as musically. If you take his kind of the whole G.I. Joe look, and then the all-leather kind of comeback period, and the white rhinestone jumpsuit Vegas years, these are kind of benchmarks in his dress. I mean, again, nothing that anyone is going to rush out to copy.
Figures like James Dean and figures like Presley were to help bring the idea of what was cool to a whole new place that we've actually decided we liked so much that we're going to keep.
Parte do visual de Elvis eram as suas costeletas, que logo tornou-se moda e foi muito copiada. Mas há um outro cantor que levanta polêmica sobre quem lançou essa moda primeiro.
Elvis stole them from me, you know, and I'm just really upset about that. But no, I wasn't. But I did tell him that. I said, Elvis, you stole my sideburns.
Notice my sideburns? Elvis didn't have his then. Not the 68.
Apesar das semelhanças nos pelos faciais, os dois tinham em comum o status de superastros em Las Vegas, cidade que Elvis pôs no mapa do entretenimento. Durante uma temporada exclusiva de 8 anos no Las Vegas Hilton, Elvis fez 837 shows consecutivos, todos com a lotação esgotada, cantando para mais de 2,5 milhões de pessoas. Mas o impacto financeiro de Heartbreak Hotel e de outros sucessos foi muito além da indústria da música.
When Elvis would be announced at the Hilton, the money would start piling in from all over the world.
We're coming up into the Hilton Hotel. This is where I spent a few years, you know, and playing the main showroom. Always stayed up in Elvis' suite. They called the Elvis suite. Because it had little markings which say, of course, on the door it said Elvis' suite, and also the bullet holes where he used to play around with his gun up there. He got away with murder, didn't he, Elvis? Nice guy, though. What a nice man.
Um encontro com o evangelista Rex Humbard nos bastidores de um dos seus shows em Las Vegas foi uma indicação de que Elvis e a igreja finalmente haviam chegado a um acordo.
Elvis said to Rex Humbard that he's not so sure whether he should be singing this kind of music. Maybe he should give up this rock and roll and he should just sing gospel music. Rex Humbard, a televangelist, responds to him, no. You keep singing your rock and roll and mix in a few gospel songs, because you're tilling millions of souls by doing this, and you're tilling souls that I can't till just by preaching the gospel. The church makes its peace with Elvis.
It's so stupid to allow the later visions of this chubby, overindulged guy, lost in his purpose. You should not let that get in the way of what an unbelievable performer this man was when he was hot.
Elvis, the name, will live forever. So will Heartbreak Hotel.
There it is. That's Elvis Presley's recording of Heartbreak Hotel.